Welcome to Saturday Mornings Forever, where if you're a fan of the 70s and 80s, this is the channel for you. I tell stories of my youth, and those of you who grew up in the 70s and 80s, us Gen Xers, you're going to relate to what I'm talking about. So sit back, enjoy, but before we begin, hit that like button like Drago hit Creed in Rocky IV. For this episode, I'm going to talk about the times that my friends and I would ride to 7-Eleven to get a 25-cent candy or lots of them, and we'd spend all day doing it. Lots of fun, and it's funny, small reward, but again, that's what we did in the late 70s and 80s. So let's get started. Most of my Saturday mornings started with cartoons and a huge bowl of Apple Jacks. After that, I would dash across the street to my friend's house and see if you wanted to ride our BMX bikes to 7-Eleven. So back in those days, we didn't have Snapchat or text messaging, so we'd have to ride our bikes over to a friend's house, knock on their door, and ask them if they can come out and play, or in this case, do they want to join us to ride to 7-Eleven. And after riding to about 5 or 6 of our friends' house, we would gather our gang, but that was about 2 to 3 blocks, and we were already spent before even getting started. So as we finished going to our last friend's house, we had our crew, about 5 or 6 of us. As we just get started, of course, often one of our friends would have a flat tire. Classic move. We'd get off our bikes and we would walk our friend back to his house so he can drop off his bike at his house. But could he still come? Of course. One of us had a BMX bike with a banana seat on it, which was perfect for him to hop on the back. We were pretty rad like that. And finally, we're off pedaling to get some now and laters. Maybe some hubba bubba. Now, I grew up in San Diego County, and anyone who knows San Diego knows that it's not flat. We got a lot of mountains and hills, so you're going up and down just to go across your route. San Diego had some serious hills. Those of you who know Sandog, remember Dictionary Hill? So along the way, it was pretty hilly, and we'd want to take shortcuts because, hey, why not, right? Make it easier on ourselves. Plus, it made it a lot more fun. And we would always cut through construction zones. And the construction zones were built on tiers, right? So the plots would have, leveled out dirt, and then it would have an embankment that would drop down to the next one here, okay? So something like that. Of course, as we're riding, we have to go up each of those embankments. Now, if we could pedal up the embankments, we'd have one of our stronger friends jump on our bike, and he would pedal to get up to the embankment, work his way down, jump on every bike, bring it up himself. Of course, the rest of us, we'd have to start scrambling up the embankment here. But you know what? One thing cool, when you're out there riding with each other, you always looked out for one another. And often, once we reached the top of the plots, we would run into other friends up there riding their bikes in the dirt. Of course, we'd ask them, hey, you want to go to 7-Eleven with us? And the question was always asked, how much money do you have? But not that it mattered. We always shared. After riding around a bit and just going up all those hills, eventually we got thirsty. But back then, we didn't have Yetis or fancy water bottles. At best, we had thermoses, which are pretty bulky, and we kept those in our lunch pails. So what was the solution to quench our thirst? Garden hoses, drinking from the garden hose. If a homeowner was outside, we'd simply ask, and they would allow us to drink from their hose. If not, well, we got creative. One of us would sneak into the yard, take the hose off, pull it off the spigot, and then we would run it around the side so we're not in the front of the house actually drinking water from this person's hose. It was a survival skill. And one time a homeowner did catch us and started yelling at us. Of course, we started putting on the sad, innocent act. All I wanted was some water. Of course, he would let us have some water, and then he would yell again, don't let me catch you coming in my yard again. Get out of here. Well, we weren't about to let this lame-o have the last word. He was officially due for some good old-fashioned retribution, courtesy of a flaming bag of dog poo. You see, back then, this was a classic prank that we did. An unsuspecting homeowner would open his door after we rang the doorbell, and he would see this flaming bag on fire, And of course, he would be in slippers, right? Normally, this is done at night or at least late afternoon before it gets dark. This way, they have their, evening wear on, mostly slippers. And what do you do when you see a flame that's right outside your doorstep? You start stomping on it. And then, of course, he starts smelling it and realize, oh my gosh, I'm stepping in dog poo. And sometimes they get so mad and they would just turn around, go get their flashlight or whatever, and they'd track the poo into their house. So the next Saturday, we made sure justice was served, and it was. When we finally arrived at 7-Eleven, a few of us would wait outside and watch over the bikes, make sure nobody would steal them while the rest of us went inside the store. It was like stepping into junk food heaven. Hot dogs, chips, soda, but we were there for the candy, right? All of this effort just to get some of our candy. Now and laters were my favorite. And these were 25 cents for a huge brick of now and laters, right? And then we'd also get some bubble yum because we got to have some gum for the ride home. So we would load up our pockets after spending our money there. And whatever was left over, Slurpees! If we didn't have enough money to buy everyone Slurpees, we would share. We would grab those red straws and we would just put them inside our, Slurpee cups and pass around, make sure everybody had some cool, cold, sugary sweetness. By this time, we still had a few hours to go back to our neighborhood and ride around on our bikes. And the only rules our parents gave us, be home before dark. When we made it back to our neighborhood, we'd spend the rest of the daylight hours riding and jumping off the curbs, where the driveway slopes up to the sidewalk. Well, those were already made ramps. So go off there and do our 1-foot jump, try to twist our handlebars a little bit on our BMX bikes, right? Hey, you got to get rad. Back then, it never dawned on us to wear elbow pads or knee pads or even put a helmet on. And it was inevitable that one of us would crash, get a bloody elbow, scraped up knee. But we knew if we had to go home, Mom would actually give us, a little kiss and give us a Band-Aid. But then she would say, you know what? Fun's over. Why don't you stay in the rest of the night? So we had a different way, a creative way to deal with that. And it didn't include Band-Aids. I'll tell you about that on another story.